And as long as you're talking about human beings, there is a subset of those human beings who can express antisocial behaviors, a will to dominance over another person. The vast majority of people are great people who want great relationships, but there is that subset of both genders who do express antisocial behavior.
Sure.
And what is worth considering, because it is very underappreciated in our society and culture and legal system, is the gender difference in when people do express antisocial behavior. So most people don't, and we want people to have good families, good cooperation, good societies, etc. for everybody involved. But we all are very familiar with masculine antisocial behavior.
Yes.
I say masculine and feminine. I'm not going to say men and women, because there's a bit of overlap there.
Of course, yeah. Some women are physically violent. There are some men who are emotionally manipulative.
Exactly.
But when you talk about masculine and feminine styles of behaviour, you're more talking in that sense.
Just the general archetypes, because they are generally...
and women do lean towards the less physical normally, and men lean towards the physical more.
Like any biological organism is going to make use of what's available to it primarily. And with men, because we generally on average have more physical strength, that's just one of the path of least resistance for us to express anger or dominance instinct. And luckily, our society has spent a long time suppressing masculine violence, and it should be like that because it's pretty terrible. I'm not even going to say it's equivalent to feminine antisocial behavior, because masculine capacity for violence is extremely destructive. So it's good that we as a society suppress that. But there are feminine type antisocial behaviors that aren't as suppressed, and they are what's breaking reciprocity sometimes between men and women as well. So to give men a bit of some practical strategies, you want to be on the lookout for some of these things. That's what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
So, we've talked before about the feminine being more empathetic. And empathy is the ability to read the emotional state of another person and respond in kind. And so that gives rise to a phenomenon where more feminine people can tend to be empathetic amplifiers. And so one thing that's good for young men to remember is to maintain frame. Now, frame is control over your emotional state. And instead of, men kind of get baited and saying, well, you just need to express your emotions. I'm saying, well, maybe be a bit more stoic and trying to have control over your emotional state. Because the more empathetic people are going to see you more as you see yourself. And so what I'm saying is sometimes you can have the beginning of an emotional escalation. And if the man gets angry, then the woman can amplify that. And it can be the start of a bit of an arms race, and that can be the beginning of a bad incident. So,
okay, so, all right, so you're saying maintain frame. This requires a little bit of stoic philosophy, sort of traditional stiff upper lip British stuff, I guess, as opposed to the express all your emotions, the American sort of let your emotions out. We need to just let our emotions out and we'll be better. That's not the case. So you do have to maintain a little bit of poise and resist that. But sorry, that last point that you just made there about women amplifying, just explain that for me a little bit more.
Well, sometimes they can be the feminine
amplifying
can be emotional amplifiers. If you're frustrated, they'll give it back to you 5 or 10-fold, and that can be the beginning of an escalation. So if you as maybe the masculine party there can learn a bit of stoicism, a bit of maintaining frame, you can really de-escalate a lot of situations. Because
so how do you maintain frame? I'm half Irish, mate. I get very fired up at times.
I think it's like going to the gym. It's a muscle that you need to train.
Yeah, exactly. Believe me, I've been training it all my life.
But it is important. I mean, nobody's perfect, but it's important to be able to do, because sometimes you can diffuse situations. No situation that you're dealing with is ever going to be optimally dealt with by letting your emotions take control of you. There's nothing that you can achieve better by being consumed by emotion.
So, okay, so what happens when you're getting triggered, though? Like, I mean, we hear all this talk about trigger, and we all know what that feels like when someone just says something that just, like, I had a woman who came up to me the other day at the pub. We were celebrating the victory of the Republicans in the US. She was a Democrat, American, Australian PhD. She identified herself pretty quickly as that.
I'm very smart, don't you know?
Yes, I'm very smart, don't you know? And she came up to sort of say, I'm just curious. I'm just curious as to why some Australian men would be celebrating this. I just want to understand. And she was dripping in that passive aggression. She was dripping in sort of, I could see that there was something going on behind the scenes there that she wasn't really coming up to try to understand. She was coming up to condescend, to patronise, to feel better about herself.
Yeah.
And I, to the horror of my friends around me, told her to go jump in the lake. And this was not the day for that conversation that we were celebrating. We wanted to be left alone. And I might have been a tad rude. But it is hard in that moment. When you recognise this stuff and you start to realise, oh, hang on, they're being manipulated here, right? You do react. So that's when you've got to say to yourself, okay, I'm going to take a step back. How then do you deal with the other person, though, if they keep coming at you? Because she kept coming at me with, I won't ever try and understand again then. I tried to understand, that sort of nonsense.
You've hit the nail on the head. The way you can train your stoicism or your frame is to be aware of the power dynamics, the manipulation, the passive aggression. Because these are what we're talking about. These are more typical in the feminine way to express antisocial behavior, to express a dominance instinct, is passive aggression, manipulation, that sort of thing. So
it's less obvious than the masculine sort of physical punch. We can all go, well, that's wrong.
Absolutely.
You shouldn't do that.
Absolutely.
You shouldn't have been violent. You shouldn't raise your voice. You shouldn't get angry. You shouldn't shout. You shouldn't yell. I've had that all my life.
Yeah.
And I've learned to control it over the years. But I'm not a physical puncher, but I am a shouter. And then but you get the feminine thing of the whole, niggle, and they're very good at it. Right?
So they are very good at it, and that's why we've got a list of points we want to touch on. Because what I want people, young men especially, to understand the points, to see it coming, to see the game coming.
Right.
And to know that it is a game, it's often a strategy and not going to be cooperated with. And so maintaining frame, seeing the game coming. At the end of the day, if you see games coming your way, or manipulation or undermining, you have to exercise your greatest power, which is your power to remove yourself from a situation.
Leave,
especially a dysfunctional relationship. But just to get down in the weeds a little bit more, so one way to verbally manipulate or sort of win an argument is very common with the feminine, is changing the point. Now, if you remember Jordan Peterson's famous Kathy Newman interview, so you're saying,
so what you're saying is,
so you're saying. And
by the way, that's a normal journalistic technique to say. We do it all the time in interviews because we're summarising what you're saying. We're taught to do that.
Yep.
But she was using it in a different way. She wasn't just summarising. She was changing what he was saying.
There's a difference to trying to summarise or clarify to reframe.
Yep.
So, if someone wanted to reframe this, they'd say, so you're saying that women are the cause of all this? I'm absolutely not saying that. And I've said it many times currently that men and women are both capable of antisocial behaviours, but we're just examining the differences. But that's a manipulative, a verbal and emotional manipulative technique. So you're saying, but then we get back to point one, maintain your frame, don't get triggered, and you have to stay on point. When you're trying to work out a disagreement, stay on point. Some of these things...
Or go take a walk.
Or take a walk or whatever.
Yeah. Come
but
back,
the point is to just be clear about what you're saying and don't let it be reframed. But some of these things happen by accident because people get emotional. But then there's a slow gradient between it becoming a dominant strategy, something that the other person's all but consciously trying to manipulate you into. So don't fall for the so you're saying or reframing or putting words in your mouth too. And so once again, it's quite annoying for people to do that. So that can often be one of the smallest parts of an aggression build-up, of escalation. So don't fall into that, because then we get to the next point, which is often the feminine will try to bait you into direct aggression.
Okay. Now, we in our main show that this segment's coming from, we talked to Bettina Arndt about, and these police officers that came out and said, there are situations where women are baiting men deliberately. These antisocial women are baiting men deliberately in order to get the reaction, maybe record the reaction, as Stephen Crowder's wife, the American podcaster's wife did, record the reaction, use that in court, right, and get a result. So there's a lot of baiting, deliberate baiting going on by this very small segment of antisocial women to trap men. And you've got to be God, I'm grateful every day for the woman that I married.
Me too.
Absolutely.
Me too.
But yeah, I mean, these guys are in these really horrible situations with these very antisocial women, And
so once again, we'll say it again, vast majority of people are great people and want to have functional relationships, and vast majority of men are great people, the vast majority of women are great people, but some men are antisocial physically and some women are antisocial relationally. Or passive aggressive.
So you're being baited?
You're being baited. So
Be
once
aware
again,
of it.
back to number one, you have to maintain frame as best you can, practice that emotional stoicism so that you are not allowing yourself to be baited into a direct aggression. Like we had the case of the man that kicked over a bucket and the water fell on his wife's feet or something.
Yeah.
It's pretty scary that even such a minute thing like that
well, that was playing court as, I was physically attacked because the water splashed onto me.
I mean, that's ridiculous. But once again, you can see that she's consciously tried to bait him into anything that she can use to get the system to destroy him.
Yeah.
And so you want to be seeing, like you did, see the manipulation coming so that you can be free of it and see, well, you're running the risk of being baited. So don't react with direct aggression, because often if somebody wants to harm you, they can be baiting you into using something to weaponize that victimhood against you. And that's different to, say like an aggressive man who's just going to attack you himself. It's a different way to do it, and it's worth being aware, like you did, seeing it coming. You really want to see it coming. The next thing we want to talk about is the use of a mid-level aggression, and it's very related to baiting, is just by suggestion, by undermining, by baiting, just small level aggressions, whether they can be so you're saying or changing the topic or speaking to you in a horrible tone or speaking down to you. Usually the feminine is good at getting right below the line that it's obvious, so they can maintain plausible deniability. And the political left does this too. I mean, this was the original book called Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky, and now the latest iteration of this, Beautiful Trouble. And you see this with a lot of the Just Stop Oil protests or the climate protests. They do something that is a mid-level aggression. And so they set up a lose-lose situation for you, and this happens at the personal level and happens at the societal level. Whereas if you react overtly, once again, you're baited into direct aggression, they get to weaponize that victimhood against you. But if you don't do anything, you look weak. So at the level of the interpersonal, it would be something like if you're out with a partner and they belittle you in front of their friends, but they do it in a very sly way, and everybody kind of knows it was a bit below the belt and they're putting you down, they're placing themselves above you, but it's not obvious enough for them to take the heat for it. And that, people always make mistakes, but if that thing becomes a continual thing, you run this lose-lose scenario of saying, well, if you turn around and be directly aggressive because you feel like you were aggressed against, then you're the bad guy.
Yeah, right.
But if you do nothing,
you're a weakling.
You're weak, and everybody
and
loses
men really
respect.
feel that bind, right? It's like, if I let this pass,
Absolutely.
like that situation I had with the woman on election night, back in the earlier part of the month, when I said, I started to fight back, and I probably didn't do it in the most calm way. I was firm and a little bit rude, and that put my friends were like, "Oh, that was a bit harsh." So I'm sitting here thinking, I said to my friend, that's necessary to push back, right? It's necessary to push back on these people with their passive aggression. You don't see the aggression, so the counter aggression looks more aggressive because they're being passive aggressive. You look outwardly aggressive.
Exactly.
And so you're in that double bind of like, well, I'm looking more aggressive. Now, that doesn't, you got to maintain your I should have maintained my stoicism in that situation probably a lot better.
Yeah.
But by the same token, what I did by pushing back was actually correct. Yeah. And my friend's saying, oh, we would have just let that go through to the keeper. That's not okay either, right? So it's this double bind situation, which can, it can drive people crazy. Double binds do that.
Exactly. Once again, we've talked about how the feminine and the left do social construction. They're very sensitive to social status. And men, because we don't think like that, we can be a little bit blind to these games. Hence why we want to talk about them, to not be so blind to them.
Yeah.
But if you're not being respected, if you're being disrespected, even below that level of it directly in a passive aggressive way, what that person's doing is chipping away at your social standing and chipping away at your respect in the eyes of other people. You don't want to put up with that either. And I've seen a lot of men, they call it being henpecked, and 20 years go by and he's got the couple of kids and he's fulfilling all his responsibilities, but the slumped shoulders and the lack of confidence and self-esteem starts to creep in. You don't want to be there either, because things are only going to get worse. A lot of these things escalate. So what you really want to do is to be able to see that strategy, the mid-level aggression. So they put you in, it's maintaining plausible deniability. It's right below that level of being direct, but you feel like crap, and because that's what they're intending for you. And if you overtly react, you lose. And if you let it go, you lose. So what you have to do is call it out. Like I said at the beginning, you can only think about this clearly if you maintain your frame, maintain your stoicism over your emotions, exercise your greatest power, which is your ability to withdraw yourself from that situation. That is your greatest power in this world, for a lot of people, but especially for young men too, is to say, I'm not feeling respected. I don't like the way you're speaking to me, that even your tone of voice, you may be frustrated, but we all have to be adults and we can't just take our frustrations off on other people. So I don't like that behavior. And if it's going to keep going, that's not part of my life. I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
That's the best thing you can do, is to see this.
All right, mate. We are out of time, unfortunately. I could keep talking about this for ages. So why don't we do that? We'll do another Side Extra episode in 2025, and we'll go through more strategies and more techniques.
Sounds good.
To get into it. But I just want to touch on a bit of that before Christmas. So
if people find that sort of stuff interesting too, follow me on Twitter. You hit the nail on. Yeah. Ask questions on Twitter. It's the sort of thing you can talk about for a long time. But
and you're
you hit
at
the nail.
The McMullen, the underscore McMullen,
no,
or just the McMullen?
The McMullen.
And it's Mac or Mc?
McMullan.
So just Mc.
Yeah.
Okay, the McMullen. Bye for now, folks. Thank you very much. You have a great Christmas, happy Hanukkah, happy New Year, and we will catch you. Thank you for everything in 2024. We'll catch you in 2025. See you then. Here at The Other Side, we do not get more than $1 billion of taxpayer money like the ABC does to waste on fun stuff that we and our friends like, while ignoring the public that we're supposed to serve. We have to rely on your support of this show. But I also hate asking for charity. So we've done a deal with what I think is the best VPN service in the world, so that you can support this show and get excellent value for yourself in return. Private Internet Access VPN is a virtual private network. You download their app onto your phone, your TV, your computer, whatever you use, and it'll route all your data through a different server location so that you can't be tracked by the prying eyes of big government and big corporations. It keeps you and your family truly safe, and it will not massively slow down your internet speeds or make it harder to use your devices like some VPNs do. Private Internet Access, PIA VPN, is quick and easy to install, and once you've downloaded it, that's pretty much it. You can sign up using our special Other Side code for less than $3 a month. Unbelievable. That is a whopping 83% off the normal price. And you'll get the first 4 months free, and you will be helping our show a lot. So get onto it. piavpn.com/otherside to get the special deal. And get this, if you've got a Netflix account, by signing on through a server in another country to Netflix, like the US, for example, you'll get access to that country's library of Netflix shows on your account as if you were in that country, which is also great if you want Netflix in a different language or something. piavpn.com/otherside. If you like that clip, there's more where that came from in our full show, The Other Side. You can watch it right here, the latest episode. And please subscribe to our channel by pressing the subscribe button right here or down here. And remember to click that notification bell too. It all helps. Join us and become part of The Other Side.